Today, I want to talk about stamp duty, which I believe is a stealth tax, which ought to be abolished. And a number of parties are announced in their manifestos. If it's anything like the Labour manifesto, it's not worth toilet paper. You're better off talking to the winds. But they're saying that it also should be abolished. I want to set up my case for that. I want to talk about the tax that quietly drains the life out of the housing market, punishes aspirations, and hits ordinary families where it hurts most. A tax that doesn't just take money, it takes opportunity. That tax is a stamp duty land tax. I want to tell you that when I bought my first home, I'd never bought a home before. My mum that raised me never owned a home in her entire life. And I never knew about stamp duty. My solicitor at the time didn't tell me until about a week before the house was due for completion. I never knew anything about this. And he said, oh, you need to transfer the stamp duty, which was £17,000. And I was thinking, right, I need to find £17,000. I had nothing more to give. I did the deposit, paid the legal fees, everything. But I managed to borrow the money in order to pay this stealth tax. This is a tax on moving, not on wealth. Stamp duty is often presented as a tax on the wealthy, but in reality, it's a tax on movement, in my opinion. It's a toll booth placed at the gateway of every home purchase, whether you're upsizing, downsizing, relocating for work, or simply trying to get your foot on the ladder. The government is waiting with its hands out. This is where I find it very egregious. I've got two young kids. They're not young kids, actually. They're in their 20s, but it's going to be almost impossible for them to buy a house. And the numbers don't lie. When temporary relief ended in 2025, the cost of moving jumped sharply, adding thousands of pounds to the bills for first-time buyers alone. That's not a tax on luxury. It's a tax on life's milestone, in my opinion. Houses are taxed again and again. It's a bit I don't understand, right? So government, right, will flutter away your money as it sees fit, waste it. There's so much waste in government, it's unbelievable. But they get to tax you again and again and again on a house that's got VAT on it with its construction. You know, you do an extension, you're paying tax again for all the materials, or, you know, you've got utility bills, you've got tax on them. You know, it's just tax. Don't get me started on inheritance tax. We already pay tax on our income. We pay VAT on almost everything we buy. We pay council tax every year. But with stamp duty, the government taxes the same over and over again every time it changes hands. Imagine if you bought a car, for example. For every time you sold it, the government charged you, or charged the next buyer, I should say, thousands just for the privilege of owning it. Technically, they do in some vehicles, because there's VAT involved. People would call that outrageous. Yet with housing, the most essential, fundamental asset in people's lives, is an acceptable norm by the government of the day. In my opinion, it's a massive stealth tax. Stamp duty is a definition of a stealth tax. It doesn't appear on your payslip. It doesn't show up monthly. It hits you at the very moment you're the most financially stretched, when you're trying to buy a home. And it's lucrative. Stamp duty receipts have surged, rising 21% in the first half of 2025 alone. Not because people are richer, but because the tax is structured to squeeze more out of every transaction as prices rise. This is not fiscal responsibility. This is opportunism. Crushing first-time buyers. For young people and families trying to buy their first home, stamp duty is a war. It's not a speed bump, it's a war. Saving for the deposit is already hard enough, but stamp duty adds thousands more on top, turning any dream of home ownership into a distant fantasy for many. It punishes the very people we should be helping. Stamp duty doesn't just hurt buyers, it hurts the entire housing ecosystem. Older people stay in their homes too large for them, for their needs, because moving is too expensive. I think most people have heard the expression assets rich, cash poor. Families who need more space can't afford to move. Workers can't relocate easily for jobs. The market becomes clogged, inefficient, and stagnant. Economists across the political spectrum agree stamp duty is one of the most distortionary taxes in the UK. It actively discourages the very mobility a healthy economy needs. Every major property analyst and policy thinkers have openly discussed the case for scrapping stamp duty altogether, noting its negative impact on mobility, affordability, and market stability. Some political parties, as I said, have floated abolishing it on primary residence, which on its face sounds quite reasonable, but I think the whole tax of stamp duty is unreasonable in itself. And they quote by recognizing that the tax is outdated and harmful. Abolishing, in my opinion, stamp duty is not a wild idea. It's a sensible one. If the government needs revenue, there are fairer, more efficient ways to raise it. Ways that don't punish people for moving house or starting a family, which is what my understanding is the UK needs. There's hardly any people other than people from other faiths and religion are creating new families. Taxing transactions is one of the worst ways to fund public services. It's unpredictable, it's distortionary, and it hits people at the worst possible moment. I think it should seriously be looked into as a time for change. Not tweak it, abolish it. Not to temporarily suspend it, abolish it. And let's see how amazing this could achieve and help so many people out. Thank you for listening.